Hey, I'm back. So, back with another screencast. Last time we were talking about automating Hyper-V using PowerShell, showed off some basic stuff. This time I'm going to take it a step further, and what we're going to do is, using the things that I showed you before, we're going to build a web server. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we did. What are we going to do now? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to import a Windows Server 2016 image that I've already created. It is a stripped down, it's not Nano Server. I'm not that cool to be using that yet. I just have a Windows Server 2016 instance that only has a command line. There's no UI or anything like that. It's almost as small as Nano, but you know, like I said, I'm just not that cool. Onto that server, we're going to put all of IIS and the supporting components so we can run ASP.NET on our server, and then we're going to rename the server and reboot it. That's all. In the real world, after you did that reboot and renamed it, you'll have, depending upon how old the image is, like for instance this image, I need to let it do all the Windows Update stuff so it gets caught up. But you would take, in your environment, after you have a machine named correctly, you would then install whatever custom application you've developed, put that on the server, and then perhaps execute unit tests against your application just to verify that everything works as you expect in the environment that you've created. But at the moment, I've not gone that far, but just getting these steps done kind of shows you the path forward for doing all of these things. So in order to do this, again, there's just 5 things. We've already seen how to import an existing VM. What we're going to do that's new is we're going to set up a PowerShell remote session to that machine. Yeah, and then once we have that session set up, we're going to use install-windowsfeature, wow, nice typo, to get the web server installed, and then we're going to rename the server to just call it web server. And then, you know, whenever you rename a machine, you have to reboot it. The rename computer command includes a flag to go ahead and restart immediately, but I put it into a separate command to restart the computer. That way then you could do some additional work even though the machine's waiting to be restarted. So let's do it. So let's look at the code. So here it is. Last time we did this. You've already seen how to do this. You can go ahead and grab the PowerShell module off of GitHub from the previous screencast. This is new, start VM and wait. What this does is it does a start-VM, and then in a do loop, we wait 100 milliseconds, so 1/10 of a second, and then we get the heartbeat property off of our VM to see if it's okay. So this is only going to work with a virtual machine that has the Hyper-V integration services installed on it. So right now, like my Linux instance won't work with this. It'll never come back. But Windows already has the Hyper-V integration stuff in it, so no big deal. Once the machine's up and running, this will go true and the loop will stop. Excuse me. Jeez. So once the machine started, I grabbed the machine's IP address. I set up my admin credentials. You already saw, I already talked about this little trick here. Set up admin credentials is just a shortcut for this stuff. All of my VMs use the same password. You know, they're not intended to be secure or anything like that. And it just makes your life easier. You're going to do this with the templates. Let's get this all onto one line. So the username is administrator. Then we use convertto-securestring to produce our password. So pass in a string as plain text. We force it so it doesn't ask for any confirmations. And then I create a global variable called global credential. This is because after this is done, this variable, if I just use $credential, nothing else will be able to see it. So I push it up into the global scope so I can reuse it all over the place as I need. And it's a PS credential object. So type name is used. We just pass in my username and password. Easy. It really shouldn't have taken that long to explain it to you, but I'm long-winded. So anyway, that's set up my admin credentials, and it's over in my PS Remote module that I'll be adding some other stuff to later. Then, the new cool stuff, new-pssession. What this does is, it's like, for Linux guys, this is like setting up an SSH connection to another machine. We pass in the IP address of the computer, and we give it our credentials. Once this is done, the object is stored in S1, and from here on I use invoke-command. And with invoke-command I pass in the session and script block. Install-windowsfeature. You can install all of the different Windows features just using this thing, very obscurely named. In this case, I'm telling it install the web server and include all of the sub-features. That means you're going to get the FTP server and all of the ASP.NET stuff. I did not include the management tools because, well, I don't need them. After this is done, we do another invoke with rename computer, and we give it the web server name here. And then our last thing that we do is we tell it to restart the whole time. Now, a lot of PowerShell commands include -computer name. So you could pass in this IP address directly to these. Install Windows feature -computer name, the IP address, and the credentials. And you could do it that way instead. I just preferred doing it with a session and then just doing invoke command each time to get everything done. The final step is I do a VM wait, which what this is going to do is, since the machine's already restarting anyway, this will wait until the machine comes back up before the command prompt reappears. So I'm going to fire this thing off, and I'm going to pause the video at a certain point because one, the server image is pretty big and it takes a minute to get it spun up, and then installing the web server takes a minute or two. So it takes about 5 minutes for this thing to run. So here we are. Let's see. Before we get too far into this, we don't have the web server, and Win Server 16 is not already waiting on us. So let's go ahead and fire this guy up. So there it goes, and we're going to see the work bar show up. It will show up 3 times. First time when Hyper-V is getting the virtual machine set up. The next one is when it starts the virtual machine. And then the third time it'll show up is when it's installing the features. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, and I'll be back when this thing's done. Alright, so after took it about 3 minutes to get everything done. When I paused, we had creating the new thing, then installing the web server, renaming it, and then restarting it. So there we are. The server is been built to this point, we can go ahead and connect to it. So there it is in my catalog. Let's shrink that down so it's actually visible to us. Boom. So my super secret so we have the host name, it's now web server 1, and as I was mentioning, I've got updates to get installed. So within this script, what you would do, my suggestion, would be either after this, install your application here, or you do it before you do the restart. To a degree, it's 6 one, half does the other. Sometimes because if there's a restart waiting, it won't let you do anything else. But I'll leave that to you and your creativity. But my point is, I put this together, this is the first time I've done this, took me about a half hour to get this figured out. The rest of it, going further, I know MS Build, so I know more or less what I need to put together so that I could kick off this script and then deploy a web application onto the server, as a part of my build process. So you can have it set up where every time you do a build, instead of testing on your workstation, you're doing a test inside an environment that is like what your application will run in when it goes to production. And as a result of doing this, you also have like disaster recovery scripts pre-built. I mean, it's almost free of charge. It's not free of charge, you paid for it. But you can reuse this stuff so much. So that's it. I hope you find this helpful. Please like, comment, those YouTube things. And if you have questions, please push them this way. I've got more videos on the way, and I'm open to ideas. I may not be going down a path you like. You might have some suggestions. No guarantees that I'll go the way you want, but hey, I'm open to it. Anyway, you have a good one, and I'll see you next time.